I'm going to do some of the preliminary slides and introduce this our organization and this campaign, and then I'll turn it over to Felicity for a lot of the nitty-gritty details on what we saw happen this year. So EnviroCentre is a large environmental nonprofit based in Eastern Ontario, and we deliver programming across 4 key areas, including sustainable transportation, but also home energy efficiency, green infrastructure, and waste and circular economy. Here in Ottawa, transportation accounts for approximately 40% of community greenhouse gas emissions. So that's why it's a big focus for our organization. And our programs in this field aim to encourage behavior change from driving by default to considering and using all sorts of sustainable modes of transportation for as many trips as possible. And one of those programs, a key one for us, is Let's Bike Month. So it takes place every June and originally started as a Bike to Work Month campaign that has transitioned over time into a Bike to Anywhere for Anything campaign. It is the largest, longest standing, and most successful annual cycling campaign in Ontario. And we often say possibly in Canada. So this might be the call that somebody calls us out on that. But as far as we know, this is one of the largest and longest campaigns in the country. This is probably a graphic that's familiar to many of you. So when we talk about cycling, we do talk about safety, but we really focus on the positive psychology behind that. We want to talk about cycling using this framework of the hierarchy of controls so that our messaging isn't just about using personal protective equipment like helmets, but really going up to changing behavior. And as we know, as we get more cyclists out on bike paths and streets, it makes it safer for other cyclists. And it's also really great for eliminating and replacing car trips. That just makes our streets safer for everyone. We also know that sometimes safety messaging can be counterproductive and prevents people from replacing these trips. If too much of the focus is on being safe, it makes it really intimidating. And we don't want that to be kind of a strong through line in our campaign messaging. I'm going to play this short video, which helps give you a sense of Let's Bike. It's a relentlessly positive campaign that focuses most of its messaging on encouragement and support. We use an app to let participants log their rides. All distances count. And once you log a ride, you get entered to win one of our prizes. And we have a lot of prizes. Over $6,000 in prizes were donated this year from local businesses. That's the end of that video. And I'll see if I can move to the next slide. This one's always tricky. There we go. And I'll turn it over to Felicity.
Great. We actually ended up with over $7,005 was the final dollar amount. I forgot to update those notes. My apologies to Cassie. Yeah, so let me just get my notes up here. So we have on the screen, you can see it, there's a snapshot of some of the visuals that are associated with the campaign. We make sure to pick visuals that represent a variety of different populations. We want to see all ages, all abilities, all types of trips, and lots of smiling people. We really want those folks who are slow riders to participate as much as the faster sports riders, and feel as welcomed and comfortable with the campaign. I even this year did some tech support for an older woman who didn't understand how to use the app. So I was walking her through it and she said, I just want to ride like 5 kilometers per day. And you know, I feel like that's a good amount for me. And I thought that was just wonderful to hear from her. We talk about some safety messaging, so road positioning on the roads, but also safety on pathways and making sure that people understand that when they're on the multi-use pathways in Ottawa, that in fact we are the not vulnerable road users anymore, and pedestrians have more priority, and so make sure that we're passing slowly, letting people know that we're there. We talk about protected intersections a lot, and how to navigate them. We're raising the profile of the infrastructure that's built for cyclists so that people understand why it's being built that way, but also so pedestrians understand why it's being built in a certain way, for their safety as well. We talk about average trip lengths in Ottawa being under 5 kilometers, which many people in the city can bike in about 10 minutes. And then they park right at the door, and it's just much more convenient. So we really bring out all of these positive aspects of cycling in Ottawa, without glossing over the challenges. We still address those, but they're not as much the focus of this campaign. We want to make sure that everyone coming out of the campaign recognizes themselves somehow in it, even if they're not ready to cycle yet themselves, because they might at some point, and it helps. I don't know the best way of saying this, but it's very easy to other cyclists, and play cyclists as an out group. But when everyone in the city is represented somehow within a campaign, then it's much harder to do that. And so it brings more of a community feel, and it makes everyone sort of see themselves in a cycling campaign, even if they're not cyclists. Next slide, please. So the campaign touches on a few different aspects. We have a friendly competition aspect where participants using the app are encouraged to make and join teams. So we have a lot of workplace teams, for example, or community groups. And then within their teams, they are then encouraged to log their rides, ride as much as possible. Team captains can put prizes available for just for their own teams. And they can make rendezvous or little rides together. We had some teams come to our end of campaign event as a group, and all rode from their workplace as a group. We include cycling tips in all of our newsletters, which are then reposted onto social media. Again, using that positive framing of why why it's important to bear these cycling safety tips in mind, and then how to address the concerns. We host workshops, both us presenting, but we also bring in special guest speakers such as the biking lawyer, or some of our local bike shops will do cycling bike maintenance workshops, and those are very popular. We also host events. So we do pop-ups at farmers markets, along bike lanes, and at other events throughout the city, to help encourage people to register for the campaign, and also just to let people know that it's happening and answer any questions about cycling in the city that they happen to have. Can you get the next slide? So on the screen, you can see a few examples from one of our PowerPoint-based workshops. So these are presented and available to workplaces for a small fee. It's a reduced fee during Let's Bike Month versus our normal Enviro workshop fee. And this particular workshop is about route planning. And we go really hard on route planning in this campaign, because we find frequently that one of the biggest barriers for people to switch from driving to cycling is that they don't know a safe route. And so they feel that they are unsafe because in their mind, the route that they drive is not safe. And that's a very fair concern. So we really go into route planning and how to find a route that is not the route that you drive, but making use of those side paths, connections through to our separated infrastructure, what type of route planning apps and resources are available, and then how to make a judgment call based on your own abilities and your group's abilities if you're going with a family or with a group, to find a destination and a route that is going to be safe and comfortable for you as an individual. Can I grab the next slide? So this year we really had a deep think about how our workshops reach the audience that we want to reach and how the messaging gets across. So we did a couple of different things this year. Instead of having all of our workshops be sort of presentation based, we branched out a little bit and offered 8 workshops in conjunction with 8 city councilors. It was first come, first serve, and they were gone within 12 hours. So very, very popular opportunity. So we hosted 8 workshops, which were directly on road in the councillor wards. 7 of the 8, the councillor actually joined us themselves, and in the other one, 3 members of the councillor staff participated. And we were able to talk about all of the things that we mentioned in our presentation workshops, but it's directly in people's communities. So looking at protected intersections, cutting through parks between neighborhoods, why is there a bulb out at crossings? That's come up a few times. Or what even is a bulb out? Pointing out these pieces of infrastructure that folks who live in the area may never have noticed before. And once we point it out and explain the sort of safety implications behind it, they understand a little bit more about why those are in their communities and how they can make use of infrastructure like that, even if it's not directly cycling infrastructure. Um, We also talk about sort of connections between the community, so how to get to stores, community centers, transit stations. We always started the rides at a community center or library or park, so a destination for many people, and then making use of cycling infrastructure and residential streets to navigate around the area. We also did a couple of, I'm not quite there yet. The other new type of workshop that we trialed this year was a trivia night, and that was really, really fun. We did 2 of them, and we really sort of did a full pub quiz style trivia night with music questions and popular culture and celebrities and movies and cycling safety tips. And what we found, or what I found when I was hosting the one that I did, was that I wasn't having to teach people the infrastructure. They were talking about it themselves and figuring out between themselves and trying to figure out the answer to the question. And in doing so, they were actually learning more than if they were just listening to me drone on and on about the benefits of protected intersections. So that was really, really successful and very popular as well. Now I'm ready for the next slide. So the question that comes up often is, does our approach work in terms of actually changing behavior? Because it's all well and good to be nice and positive, but if it doesn't actually change anyone's mind, then we're not really accomplishing the goal. And we do have data that we collect every year. This is data from 2024 because we're actually still in the process of collecting data. Our survey closes today. So I don't have 2025 data for you yet, but I did take a peek and it's very similar. It follows a similar pattern. So one of the big motivations for people to join Let's Bike Month is that they wanted to cycle more frequently. So they wanted to get the information and the encouragement and the community feel to be able to cycle more frequently. Next slide, please. I would also note that that was a multi-select question, so the numbers don't add up to 100%. Same with this one, it's also multi-select. So this was a question asking, has participating in Let's Bike Month encouraged you to cycle more often for certain types of trips? And if I can get you to click one more, there should be an arrow that comes up. There it is. And you can see that, yeah, about 40% of people already bike for most of their trips, and participating in this campaign didn't really do anything. But for the rest, they were encouraged to bike more frequently to a different destination. So work, errands, recreational activities, entertainment, or other. So that's pretty successful, I think. Next slide. We also ask how long people have been riding a bike. And again, like 82% of people have been riding for over 5 years. That's not overly surprising for a cycling campaign in a city like Ottawa, where a lot of people do ride a bike. But we had about 10% of people who were either brand new to biking or had just gotten back into it after a break as an adult. So that's pretty cool. It's nice to see some new people coming and joining the campaign who are brand new, essentially as adult cyclists. Next slide. And then we do get some questions about if we're preaching to these already cycling converted choir. But we find that about 70% of our participants say that their main mode of transportation when they're not cycling is to drive. So car, motorcycle, truck, or van as the driver. This suggests in most cases that they have access to the vehicle and are choosing not to use it for some of their trips. Can I get the next slide? So these are our 2025 results that we have so far. We had over 9,380 participants. About 2,700 of those participants actually logged a ride on our app. 198 teams, over 600,000 kilometers logged, and that was a huge jump over last year. And I'll explain, you'll see why in a couple of slides when I show you some of the big additions that we had. And about 13,000 car trips saved. This year we asked a question, why is riding a bike important to you? And I did pull some early data from this because I thought it was really interesting. Environment, health, and exercise come up pretty frequently, not overly surprising. But some of the other ones that I would like to highlight that I thought were really nice to see, love, enjoy, freedom, friendly, um, economical, community, better. Like these are words that come up a lot when people are thinking about why riding a bike is important. And I think what comes across there is just the overall positive feelings that people have when they ride a bike, and that's something that we need to try and hone in on and encourage. So these were a few of the things that we added in 2025. This campaign is always building and growing and expanding. So one of the reasons why we were at 600,000 kilometers logged this year was because we integrated Strava. So we have looked into the opportunity to integrate Strava every few years for the past 10 years, as long as Strava has really been a focus in Ottawa. And this year something changed and it was much easier to integrate. And so we made the jump and we integrated it. And I think it was 20% of our participants, I did all the math on this yesterday, 20% of our participants took advantage of Strava integration. And the folks who used Strava recorded significantly more trips and ride distance than the folks who didn't use Strava. And the folks who didn't use Strava had the same average as the previous year. So it seems to me like we were really able to capture a population of people who bike more frequently and didn't want to log rides twice, which had been a population that told us that they wanted to participate in the past, but weren't going to actually log their rides. So this integration really made a big difference to us. We also enabled messaging from team captains to team members, a leaderboard on our app, which helps note some of the activity from other users and encourage people to feel more like part of a community feel. We added those rides with city councilors to bring workshop content directly into communities, and the trivia night workshops, which again attracted a different population. And you can see Cassie's going through some of the amazing photos that we had this year. It was just a really positive, wonderful experience to be able to lead this campaign for another year in a row. And I think the next one is back over to Cassie to talk about what's next.
Yeah. So in some ways, we don't really know. We know that Let's Bike Month is a well-loved campaign, and part of our mission around this is to keep growing and improving and evolving the campaign to respond to the needs of the community and cyclists and everyone in Ottawa. So as Felicity has indicated, we have a survey that we do as part of this each year, and that informs some of the ways that we continue to grow and change the program. And we're also interested in talking with other communities who are interested in learning more about this model and the app and the type of work that we do and how it can expand into more communities. Because as we look at trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we all know that that needs to happen much more quickly than it is happening now. And any ways that we can work together and support one another in that work, we are very keen and eager to do. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share our success with Let's Bike Month this year. We're very proud of this program. And as I said, we don't want to keep it to ourselves. We're really happy to share and to connect with other people and discuss how we can continue to work together and grow cycling across the country.